Hello, my name's Hayley Noakes, and this is the last video in the time management section about procrastination. So we'll start off. Why do we procrastinate? Well, ideas are in our head and they're not open to judgment by others, so often writing something down is then crystallising it for yourself, so that then you're putting those ideas out there for other people to read and see, and especially with essays when you're getting people to mark them, and that can be quite a nerve-wracking thing to do. So we're worried obviously about what grades we're going to get, whether tutors are going to think that our ideas are silly or that we've misunderstood something, and also because sometimes the task just seems so huge. There's so much reading and research out there, so to narrow it down can seem like such a huge task. It's very easy then to procrastinate and want to get on with something else. So it's not just students as well. You speak to any of your tutors, you'll find that when they're writing research papers, when they're marking your assignments, when they're writing assignment questions, writing new modules, procrastination is something that everybody has to deal with. So, dealing with procrastination, I just feel overwhelmed. And that's, as I said, something that we all come across, where there's so much out there that we can often find that we're not able to deal with it. We get bored with things as well. Things go on too long, and things are going on too long often because you are procrastinating. So it's about breaking down those tasks so that you're not bored with them by it, and making sure that, as we spoke about before, that when you're planning, you're being specific and measurable about the things that you're doing. I don't know where to start. That's often a case when we haven't analysed the question properly, therefore doing that will help you. There's always one more book I need to read. That's just something that you're going to have to get used to. There will always be more to read, always be more journal articles to read and to find. What you're looking for, though, is this acceptance that we're not expecting you to write a perfect assignment that outlines absolutely everything. What you've got to do is judge yourself to do the best you can in the time, space and the word count that you've got. I can't concentrate might have something to do with the areas that you might be studying in, the time of day you might be studying in, and also maybe thinking about your reading and note-taking techniques as well, and the types of thing you might be reading. Sometimes when you try to sort of start off with a journal article that's full of jargon and quite difficult to understand, you end up finding it really hard to concentrate. So start with something that's more simple, give yourself the basics first, have a Google in these concepts, and that will be able to make you able to sort of immerse yourself in more difficult reading more successfully. Everything I write is rubbish, so I throw it away and start again. I mean, that's something that all of us deal with as well. And there's absolutely nothing wrong with writing, getting on with it, just starting to write. Even if what you do write you think is rubbish, the fact is that you're writing, and eventually you'll be writing things down that you will be able to hone your ideas more and more. It's about making sure that your ideas have clarity, rather than ideas that make you sound really clever. Often students say they try to make their essay sound clever by using fancy words, but actually what you really want to do is for an average person, a colleague or somebody that maybe doesn't even know anything about your subject area, can read it and understand what your point is and actually what you're trying to say. And you'll find that if you do a good flowchart plan for your essays, there's less opportunity for this, because what you don't get is waffle. And when your sentences are going on and on and on, you end up with lots of long sentences. You can end up, it's because you're writing away, you're sitting down at the computer and you started writing, but you haven't actually planned what you want to say yet. And I'll do everything except what I'm meant to be doing. Again, this is often back to sort of the I just feel I'm overwhelmed section at the top there, is because you haven't planned out exactly what you need to be doing. The task is too big. You can't just say to yourself, I'm going to work on my essay today. That task is too big to just be able to sit down and successfully work on that. You have to be more specific about what you're going to be doing. And that way, you can start off slowly and chip away at these tasks, rather than deciding that the bathroom is much more interesting to clean, or run to take the dog for a walk. It's so easy to do those things. So it's important that you do have a plan, and that you're specific about what you're doing, then you stick to it and reward yourself while you're doing those things. So, as I said, make up your own rewards. So promise yourself a tasty flapjack, or make sure that you arrange something nice to do on a Saturday evening, and notice how good it does feel to actually finish things, to feel like you're on top of what you're doing, and how nice it is to be organised. And ask someone else to check up on you as well. It does actually work. I know while I was studying for my master's degree, I asked friends that weren't studying at all to say to me, have you written anything for your dissertation today? And it made me want to do work, because I knew somebody else out there was taking note of what I was doing, even though they knew nothing about at all what I was doing. It was that pressure of and making sure that I had somebody to answer to. You could set your own deadlines, but if nobody else is going to check on those other than you, sometimes it doesn't mean anything. So you should identify as well the unpleasant consequences of not doing the task as well. What is going to happen if you don't do that today? Okay, so maybe I'll do it tomorrow. Okay, so let's think further down the line. Or if I keep putting it off, then does it mean I'm going to get a worse grade? Does it mean I'm going to fail an assignment? What does that mean for next year? So it's bringing us back to those larger goals that you have in mind. If you fail an assignment, if you get a lower grade, is that going to affect your degree classification? And that career or whatever it is you want, or the course you want to do afterwards, does that require a certain grade average to do that? So it's the unpleasant consequences of not doing the task. Does it mean if I don't do it now, that it means I have to spend a lot of my Christmas holidays when I should be eating mince pies and having fun with my family and friends, that I'll have to do work because of that? So identify the unpleasant consequences of not doing it, and work out the cost of your time as well. I think actually that's quite an important thing to do when you're paying a lot of money for your degree to be here. So work out your hourly rate. So we all have an hourly rate. We all work sort of 7 hours a day, 35 hours or so a week. What is your hourly rate across the year for the courses that you're doing? And how much money are you wasting by procrastinating? And it often comes because you're disorganised. So listen to the other videos on here and get organised. Plan your assignments, analyse your question, write out timetables for yourself. And that way then procrastination doesn't come easy, because you don't have time to think about what shall I do today. Oh, I'll go and clean the bathroom. You know that what you're going to be doing is spending 30 minutes organising your files, and then you're going to spend an hour and a half reading 2 of those journal articles, and then you're going to go for lunch. So you've got a clear timetable. It's not like you don't ever get to have any fun anymore, or ever get to have any time where you're spontaneous. But you should be treating your degree like a job. You have to spend a number of hours on it each day to be successful. So keep a to-do list so you can't conveniently forget about unpleasant or overwhelming tasks. And the to-do lists are very satisfying when you tick it off as well. But do focus on one task at a time. It sometimes can get overwhelming when you've got lots of different things going on. It's okay to work on different essays all at the same time, but each of those tasks should be very specific to that assignment. So it's more manageable tasks is what you're looking for. And start with quick, small tasks each day. It's a good idea, because that way then you kickstart your work, and that way then you get going, you get into the study mode that you should be in for the next however many couple of hours. So if you start off by planning on reading that big difficult journal article, it can be very difficult to start. But if you start off by filing something away, summarising some notes, revising some notes from yesterday, those things that are a bit easier, then it's easier to sort of get into that mindset overall. And as well, as it says here, many procrastinators overestimate the unpleasantness of a task. We overestimate, we build it up in our head, and writing this essay, doing this lab report, as some huge, terrible task that's going to be so awful and we just can't do it. And it's that pressure is what we put on ourselves. Actually, you'll find when you break it down that you can find these tasks enjoyable. It is your subject area, so you are interested in what it is you're writing about, and it's your chance to have a voice. So when you break it down in those ways, actually the writing up and the finished piece doesn't actually take long to produce. It's all the little bits of reading and note-taking and planning that take the time beforehand. And those things can be broken down into nice little convenient tasks. So focus your mind. So often we've all got lots of other things going on in our lives. We're all busy. We all have sort of other things that we want to do, our hobbies, children, jobs that we have to deal with. It's hard to concentrate during the day because we're just always thinking, I must worry about these other things. We should set time aside to worry about those things. Worrying about something constantly is not going to make any difference. So setting a time aside to worry about something. Say, well, okay, I'm not going to think about the fact that I have this party to organise now and I've got so much to do for it. I'm going to set aside half an hour to worry about that later. Because you can find yourself distracted by these things, and that's when you find yourself writing notes and reading and thinking, actually, what I've been thinking about for the last 10 minutes is not actually what I should have been thinking about. And you should do that generally in life anyway. It's not good to spend all of your day sort of worrying about tasks you've got to do. You should always be thinking about setting aside time to sort of have a good think about how things are going in your life. So, as I said before, focus on one task at a time. It can be harder to focus if you take. It can be much harder to focus if you take mini breaks to answer emails and send text messages and take quick phone calls. Where we are a society nowadays where we have things continually flashing in our faces and going on all the time. We have mobile phones, we have iPads, we have laptops, we have advertisements everywhere at us all the time. So when you're doing your work, turn off your mobile phones, put your iPad to the side, don't look at your text messages. You can do it all later. Nothing will be that urgent that you can't spend an hour studying or reading effectively. You'll feel much happier after that time than you will if you're continually sort of sending text messages or replying to emails throughout whatever it is you're doing. Because you lose that focus, and this is when you've taken that time to kickstart your research or your study each day with an easy task to focus your mind, and then you go and ruin it by quickly replying to several emails. As it says here, some researchers believe it taking up to 15 minutes again to regain complete focus. And if you're thinking that you're doing that several times a day, that's quite a lot of time that you're losing out on. So close your email box and chat programs. Put up do not disturb signs. Go somewhere quiet where you can get on with your work. And also, I think it's important to do those things when you are going to the library to study, to be considerate of other users as well. It is a library where you should be studying. A lot of students spend a lot of time in the libraries on their mobile phones, which is completely inappropriate. So set time aside to do that outside. If you want to go for a break, then 15 minutes, and then reply to your emails and your text messages out there. You can switch between high and low attention tasks as well, because heavy concentration, you can't keep that up all day. You might have to go to the library and study all day because that's the only day you've got because you're on placement or you've got work or whatever else in the week. But you can't expect yourself to spend all day reading these difficult journal articles. So you might spend a couple of hours working on a difficult journal article that you're reading, and then you might then spend another hour focusing on taking some notes from notes, so creating cue cards, and then you might spend another hour perhaps maybe doing some planning, so maybe you're doing a flowchart or a mind map, or you might spend another half an hour going to the library catalogue or looking on Google Scholar for new research that you're doing, or writing. So mix it up a bit so you're always working towards those goals of getting your assignments done, but you're not making it essentially a boring, arduous task. And prioritise as well. So I think this is about coming back to what we were talking about earlier, about what are the unpleasant consequences of not doing this particular task, and that will help you prioritise. Because having too much to do can be distracting because the task is seen too big, or you can go from task to task to task, creating the illusion that you are actually doing lots of work, but in reality you're not really accomplishing much because you're not being able to give anything your full 100% attention. So, as it says here, if you're not sure which task to start with, then take 10 or 15 minutes to prioritise your to-do list doing an urgent, important matrix, which is this one here. So you've got a matrix here and you're thinking, well, what are my important goals? What are my critical activities? So what do I need? What my deadlines actually are? So these are the unpleasant consequences. What are my distractions? So things that are distracting me because I'm procrastinating. What things are interrupting me? So maybe I do have children and a job that are going to interrupt me. So put these things down in here and see where then you might be able to prioritise your tasks. Okay, so that's it for the time management section. Have a look on mindtools.com and learnhigher.ac.uk for more tips and advice on how to manage your time. If you haven't watched all of the other videos in here, then please do so, because you'll find it gives you a good overview of where to start with your time management and organisation. And there are lots of other topics in this area as well that you can get advice on, things like critical thinking and more advice on reading and note-taking. or your leadership skills or communication skills, anything that can help you with your mentoring and your own study.